Okay, so this is video number 1 for the Property Nomads, and it is our deal calculator, or deal valuer as we like to call it, and this is where we measure if a property is a deal or not. Now there's 3 metrics that we use for this spreadsheet, and it has to tick all 3 of those boxes for it to be a deal. Now you can make up your own mind depending on what investor you're working with and what metrics they're using, but this is kind of like the basic to give you an idea as to whether a property is a deal or not. Now those 3 things are that the property must cash flow over £150 per month after all costs. As a flip exit strategy, it must have a profit of over £10,000. And as a buy-to-let metric, it must be less than 3.5 years for the money to be paid back. Those are the 3 metrics that we're using, and so for this example I'm going to show you. Over here we've got the money in, so this is basically how much it's going to cost to buy the property and to hold it whilst it's being refurbed to get it up to a standard to be rented out. So in this example, the list price, so the price that the vendor is asking, is £100,000. But we've agreed to purchase it off them for £75,000. So it's automatically populated that it's 25% below market value, which is a really good number. I use the 75% loan to value because, as I've explained, we stress test to our investors at really high numbers so they get the worst case scenario. Now this is automatically populated that what our deposit's going to be. Anything in these grey boxes you don't change, okay, it automatically populates for you. Not quite sure why the broker's grey, but I'll change that. Now in here I've put that the refurb cost is around about £7,000 and the other costs associated with buying the property. It will automatically populate your stamp duty for you. And then in here we've added just some average numbers for holding that property whilst we're refurbing it. These numbers are based on what we're sourcing in Hull at the moment, but depending on your location they might be slightly different, so just pop the numbers in there, roughly what they're going to be every month, and then you're going to put how many months it's going to take to do that refurbishment. So it gives you a rough idea of how much it's going to cost to run that property whilst it's being refurbished. Okay. The next section is the money in, so this tells us what our mortgage debt is going to be based on this interest rate. So again, you can change that accordingly. So in total for 3 months it's going to cost £562.50 whilst that property is being refurbished. That's the number it's going to cost us in mortgage payments. For now I want you to ignore this section here just because it's not relevant, and we're only going to focus on these 3 metrics here, here and here. So for this example, I've done a done-up value of £115,000. Again, the loan to value is 75%, and it tells me that we're leaving just under £4,000 in this deal. So that's okay. And the return on investment is over 48%, which is fantastic. And it's going to take just over 2 years for all our money to be paid back. So that's a really good little deal. Over here, you can see that our profit is going to be over 21,000. If there was a minus next to that, that would mean that it's not profitable at all. So remember, ideally we want this number to be over 10,000 for it to be a deal. So the exit strategies for our investors, we always have 2. So one of them being the flip and one of them being the cash flow. So with it being over 10,000, it ticks my number 1 exit strategy. Now over here is the cash flow. So you will pop in here how much rental that property is going to achieve once it's refurbished, and for stress testing purposes we will use 5% as our metric. Now I always give the investors both numbers, so I give them the 5% metric and I give them the 3.5% metric, which is what we're working on at the moment. For this example I'm just going to show you that at 5% that's how much the mortgage cost is going to be. The estate agency rate for buy-to-let generally about 10%, that's fair. The monthly operating around about 10% for buy-to-let, that is fine. So it says that our monthly operating expenses are around about £65 a month, which for a small buy-to-let I would say is reasonable, and it tells us that the property is cash flowing £160 a month. So it ticks my cash flow exit strategy as well. So remember, it's got a cash flow over £150. it's got to flip at over £10,000 profit, and it's got to be less than 3.5 years that our money is paid back. If it ticks all of those dots, numbers, whatever, then it means that it's a deal and it can go on our website. So that is your deal valuer. If you need any help with that, then please do get in touch.